Good morning to our listeners here on Long Island's most listened to radio station, Walk 97.5. My name is Dan Leveler, president of New York State's largest independent labor union, Suffolk AME. It's a pleasure to welcome you to another episode of Suffolk Matters, where Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. This morning's guest is Christian Limbach, AME vice president, and a caseworker over at Office of the Aging. Good morning, Christian.
Good morning, Dan.
So I guess let's just talk about all of what I said in the introduction. One, vice president at AME, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But caseworker at Office of the Aging, and that to me is interesting because we're talking about a type of government service that, again, is another example of everybody pooling their resources through taxation, but everybody pooling their resources and providing services to people that maybe can't provide them quite for themselves, but not the expert. I imagine you're much more familiar with the topic than I am. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is to be a caseworker in Suffolk County for Office of the Aging?
Certainly. Well, the primary mission of the Office for the Aging, one of the programs, the main programs is called the ISEP program. I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but essentially the mission is to keep seniors in the home for as long as it's safely possible. Nobody wants to be in a nursing home,
right?
And because people want to be comfortable. They don't want to be treated by strangers, and we provide those services in the home. Anything from basic cleaning of the house, doing domestic chores, to bathing, assisting with walking. It runs the gamut depending on the assessment.
Right. So, in essence, the services that get provided at assisted living facilities. AME members, specifically from Office of the Aging, those caseworkers, come down and provide that in the home for the affected individuals.
Essentially, a caseworker provides services to people who are too poor, not poor enough for Medicaid home care, and they don't have enough money for assisted living. Assisted living costs up to thousands a month, $6,000 for some.
Right.
And that's out of a lot of people's budget.
Yeah.
You'd have to have done pretty well in your life. So we do get a number of civil servants, retired civil servants, but because of the benefits that they worked under, they're well taken care of. These are people who just had a couple of bad breaks go here or there, or, life happens.
Could happen to anyone, right?
Absolutely. So we provide a multitude of services that we have to touch on other county agencies too.
Right.
But what the primary focus is, as I said before, is to keep people in their homes for as long as it's safely possible. A caseworker from the top goes into a home and does an assessment.
Okay.
And through the assessment, we figure out the needs.
Right.
If the needs are very, very severe, we might refer to Adult Protective Services if there's no one able to care for this person, if they're at risk of exploitation.
Right.
The so-called normal
the average case.
The average case, yeah. Essentially doesn't require that level of care.
Right.
And the care that's provided is everything from basic housekeeping to personal care.
Right.
Some people get 3 hours a week of those services. Some people get up to 20.
Right.
Each caseworker has about 40 to 45 clients. It can get hectic.
Right.
But I like to say that as opposed to other agencies, our clients are very happy to see us because we're bringing them things.
Yes.
We walk into a house and deal with an elderly couple, and they find out that they're eligible for the SNAP program. They're eligible for the discounted public transportation. They're heating discounts through the county heat program.
Sure.
As well as there's a multitude of
Right.
things we bring to them.
So, again, as a recap to what you're talking about, you have individuals that are trained in all of these programs and personal situations to understand what someone needs and what they're eligible for, and provides them that service. And I would imagine you're talking hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals through a confluence of events, however it occurred in their lives, sit in between what Medicaid would provide and what an assisted living facility would provide, and get them the help that they need to remain in their homes as long as possible and to live the best possible life that they can. I would say that probably almost everyone that you're seeing has put a lifetime of effort into the workforce, maybe into their community, whatever else, and now
Absolutely.
They need a little looking after.
Yes, they do. And in a lot of cases, because of the advanced life expectancy, a lot of people outlive their retirement savings.
Right.
I've had clients who are 104 years old, saved properly. But I've had clients who, at this point, are about 10, 11 years older than me,
Right.
who had a lot of bad breaks.
Yeah.
And anything we could do to provide them an easier existence, up to and including applying for housing, senior housing, through the Section 8 program.
Right.
We do for them. In my experience, the 10 years I worked with aging, I've never met a more dedicated and caring population of caseworkers. And I'm sure CPS and APS, they have their a similar attitude.
Sure. And, that's something that we see, now in our roles in the union, we get to see a lot of departments and what they do. But specifically in Office of the Aging, that's a very unique job, and it takes a unique individual to get it done. And we're fortunate to have so many that are willing to do the job and do the job well. And, again, AME members, I think at their core, are altruistic. They care first and foremost
Absolutely.
about the community they survive. They provide for. That's definitely something special. And I think it's also great that government steps in when we talk about the tax bill, the burden overall. When you look at the costs on average per household for all the services that AME provides, including this one, not exclusively this one, but for all of them, it's about $89 for the year.
Yes.
Of which your department was just a very small percentage of. So very good work is done, and with an eye to fiscal responsibility.
Oh, positively. We don't want people in nursing homes because nursing homes cost, the individual rarely pays for it. It's the taxpayer who does through Medicaid, and the expense is as astronomical, if not as astronomical as a assisted living.
Right.
So our services provide that for them. And should they outgrow our services, need more care, we refer to Medicaid home care,
Right.
which in itself is, again, much less expensive and just as, as suited to the needs as a nursing home could be.
Yeah. And, nursing home, assisted living, all of those things, although they're there as a service, so to speak, but they exist for profit. They need to
Positively,
make money to cover their workforce, cover, building costs and to make a profit for those people that invested in it in the first place, whereas government is not in the business of turning a profit, so to speak, especially in a situation like this. It is to stretch the taxpayer dollar as far as possible and provide as many services as best they can.
Yes. With recent technological developments, I can tell you from the day I started at Aging to when I was brought up to AME headquarters, the technology has made the job, I wouldn't say easier, but more easily organized.
Yeah.
When I started in 2006, I believe our caseload was expected to be up near 28, 30 clients. Now,
Right.
because of these advances and because of our workforce performing diligently,
Right. Yeah.
the caseload's near 40, 45, which is manageable
Right.
because the clients are not in a life or death situation
Right.
like adult protective services or child protective services. We have such an interrelationship with other programs in the county, other divisions. I mentioned Medicaid. There's also DSS, Department of Social Services, for the HEAP program, the Home Energy Assistance Program. We deal with the police sometimes, should something be awry, domestic violence programs,
Yep.
and the DA,
Right.
should there be some kind of fraud. As you know, seniors are open to
Targets, yeah.
Absolutely,
there are
yeah.
entire groups of people out there, as horrible as it is as a concept, that target what they feel is a vulnerable population, the senior population, and attempt to defraud them out of the money that they've earned in their lives.
Yes, and some public awareness has gone on, telling people that the IRS doesn't call you, and that's one scam.
Oh yeah,
among many scams.
right.
And that's another thing we do is we protect the seniors from that. I can't tell you how many clients would ask me to look at their mail to suss out what was real and wasn't.
Right.
And I would say a full 95% of it was
Sure.
your book clubs and
And we've heard horror stories about, special hearing aid programs that, they seem free at first, but then end up costing thousands of dollars later on. And I think it's very important for the senior community in Suffolk County to have access to people that know what the scams are, know what the programs are that seniors actually legitimately can take advantage of, and have earned the right to access.
yes.
So I guess with all that in mind, maybe I'm mistaken here, but is there a contact number that people could call, whether they're the caretaker of someone that's older, or whether they're someone older themselves and want to avail themselves of this this great program?
Importantly, I neglected to mention a very, very important program that I'm eligible to access now as part of the sandwich generation. I have young kids and an elderly parent.
Right.
There's a caregiver program. You can receive help for yourself, taking care of your elderly loved one, so you can get a breather, so you can have a life.
Right.
Take care of your life.
Yeah.
The contact number for the Office for the Aging is 631-853-8200. You'll be asked, you tell the caseworker or whoever answers the phone your situation. You'll be asked to provide information. It's an application over the phone. There is waiting lists for the services, but they are prioritized in order of emergent need, sometimes with age. Age is a factor. And sooner than later, you will see a caseworker at your door to ask you these same questions in person.
Right. So, again, that number was 631-853-8200. And if you're in this situation or you know someone who's in this situation, we encourage you to call. And the sooner you do, the sooner you're in the queue, so to speak, to move this process along and get the help that you need or your loved one needs. And so, again, we do encourage you to call. So, Christian, let's get into a newer aspect of your involvement in the community, and that is specifically in your role as being a vice president up at AME, and now advocating on behalf of all of our membership and all of their job titles and responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
I guess first and foremost, how is that transition, for you coming out of the caseworker, day-to-day interactions into now what it is to be, a union officer?
Well, the most important thing I learned as a caseworker is to talk to people, not at them. And one thing that always bothered me is how certain people would talk to the elderly clients as though they were babies.
Right.
Would you like that?
No.
Neither would I. Knowing how to speak to different people from different walks of life was very important too.
Right.
Pardon. My other background also played into that. When I was EMS, I was for a few years.
Right.
That taught me not to stress so much.
Right.
You have to keep your head. Some members, when you talk to them, you have to keep your head.
Yes.
Some bosses too.
Right.
Office for the Aging taught me how to compartmentalize and not take the job home with me in my head.
Right.
Of course, we work 24/7, so I'm there to respond.
Sure.
But I can actually hang out with my kids and hang out with my kids.
Right.
As opposed to thinking about, what's going on at one of my units.
Right. Right. So this workload, I guess, differs a bunch.
Yes.
In a sense, even if you just talk about the hours, at Office of the Aging, there's set hours that you operate.
Yes.
You know what time you're coming in the morning. You know what time you're going home.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case with the union world.
No.
There are always, again, we talk about we have, employees that are 24/7, so there's a flexibility that's needed there.
Yes.
And then there are a lot of things that we deal with, in the community and involve ourselves in the community. And those things don't happen during a normal 9-to-5 day. They happen at nights. They happen on weekends. And I think we've all, in a sense, felt that added workload. How do you feel that's, kind of affected your overall life?
My overall life, again, I've learned to compartmentalize. I've learned to work in priority order.
Right.
Family essentially comes first.
Yeah.
And then the union takes up spots number 2, 3, 4, and 5. I should say my girlfriend is 1A.
1A, right.
Yes.
It's essentially family as well, right?
At this point, yeah.
Yeah. So the nature of this job, similarly to the nature at Office of the Aging, is to advocate on people's behalf.
Oh,
know the programs, keep people informed of what their rights and maybe I don't want to say the word privileges, but different things that they have access to as members of the association, including representation, but well above that. It's a lot to ask of somebody.
Yes. And also keeping abreast of newer information. You don't want to give out faulty information. A few years ago, the National Labor Relations Board ruled that you could use a company phone to do union business. Recently, it was rolled back. If someone didn't know that,
They would be
there would be a
operating
lot of-
under the assumption that they were doing things lawfully when they weren't. Yeah.
Right.
So, and that all
that's
wraps
just
in with
one
advocacy.
example. One
Yeah,
example.
Yeah.
Advocacy, just fighting for the rights and the fair and reasonable treatment of my clients and my members.
Right.
That's absolutely where both jobs intersect.
Sure. And, getting back a little bit, and applying, previous jobs that you had when dealing with EMS, you know what life and death looks like.
Oh, absolutely,
And
sure.
sometimes you're going to get a call and someone's going to say, this is the most urgent thing that ever happened because it's happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you some perspective as to whether or not you're dealing with a true emergency or you're just dealing with an emotional reaction to something that, while upsetting, isn't quite risen to the
Life-threatening.
level of life and death.
Yes,
Yeah.
no CPR needed. Maybe a Band-Aid and they're there.
Yeah.
But, hey, listen, your broken leg doesn't hurt me, but I'm aware that it hurts you. If
Yes.
people lose that perspective, then,
Right.
we're lost.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess that comes back to an earlier point that you made, and when you talk about not talking at people, having some degree of empathy and that calm demeanor, I think, goes a long way to making sure that you have an understanding of the issue and you know what needs to be acted on in priority order and how to get it done.
Yeah, there's no template, to our days.
Right.
At the Office for the Aging, there was an essential template. Anything can happen, and it probably will at
Right.
AME.
Sure.
I think that was from Mickey Mouse Club back in the 70s.
Showing your age, my friend.
Yes, well, so's my hairline.
Yes, mine as well. So let's talk about teamwork up at AME and how things get done. There isn't. You talk about that template situation. There isn't a prescribed path that we take, and then you get this type of phone call. This person handles it, and this is how it gets resolved. We have to pull together often, and we have formalized meetings where we know we're going to deal with official business, but there's a considerable amount of hallway conversations of which you've been a part of
absolutely.
too, where something pops up. So just talk a little bit about your experience with the style of teamwork that we're working with.
Well, we've become aware of each other's strengths, and we tend to rely on each other for that. Just spitballing possible
Yeah.
solutions
Yeah.
is an amazing way to come to a satisfactory answer. I mean, we have one officer who essentially is a substance abuse guy
Right.
or girl, but
Ex-substance abuse. I just want to be clear to the...
yes, hasn't
our
abused
listeners.
Any substance in many, many years.
Right.
But he knows the programs. He knows how to deal.
Yeah.
And, maybe someone with less knowledge would handle it a different way.
Right.
And, say there's another officer who's well-versed in, say, blue-collar issues.
Right.
Not that there's a huge difference. I come from a blue-collar background.
Right.
I was a custodian for 20 years before I came to county.
Yeah.
It's not that you have to speak differently. You just have to see their viewpoint.
Right.
And that's where empathy plays in again.
But it helps that we lived it,
Yes.
Yourself, myself. I mean, I've been in construction for decades at this point. I hate even saying that. But, I worked the trenches and I worked above the trenches, in terms of oversight. But you can't forget where you came from, what it was like to physically do the work versus, observe somebody do the work.
True. And also to remember how you were viewed by others.
Sure.
And, that's a big part. I mean, everyone should get respect,
Right.
and when I see that not happening,
Yeah.
sometimes I really have to bite hard on my tongue.
We have some very bright individuals inside of AME that they like the physical work. They
Yes.
want to physically do these things. It's not that they couldn't have done other things with their lives. They enjoy it. I just talk about people in general. There's some people who like outdoor walks, and there are other people who want to go to the gym and have climate control and a view of nothing other than maybe their reflection. But that's what makes the world go around.
Indeed.
And the idea that the blue-collar workers inside of AME and inside of government aren't amazing, bright, caring individuals, I think does them a disservice.
Absolutely. As I said, there's no template.
Right, right.
And no template to, our white-collar workers or, college workers. Every situation is unique. Every person is.
Yeah.
And understanding that is a tremendous part of our job.
Right. And like Office for the Aging, those caseworkers need to be aware of the different programs and avenues to get things done.
Yes.
But the individuals receiving the service aren't expected to be that expert. And in the same way, workers in the government really do rely on union officers such as yourself to have information that they otherwise wouldn't have. In essence, we're expected to be experts in the programs that we offer.
Yes. And, if I don't have the answer immediately, I'll get back to you within 24 hours.
Yeah.
If I don't find the answer in 24 hours, I'll say, I don't know yet.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone's owed that level of respect.
Yes. So I guess just to wrap up, one final point, and just touching back on one of the officers that works with us, and being so involved in helping people, fight back against the disease that's, alcoholism, which, is the broad mantle that covers all sorts of substance abuse. This is a person who they go to meetings, not because they need to go to meetings. They want to experience what it means for someone to go to a meeting. They involve themselves in programs and stop by facilities just to do a walkthrough so that they know what people are going to go through. That's what it takes to do this job.
Yeah.
To not read a piece of paper and say, I have some rudimentary understanding of what this program is supposed to be, and therefore that's what it is, but to physically go out and do it. Sit through.
It's not just checking boxes on a list.
Yeah.
Yeah, positively. It's also staying humble.
Sure.
because the minute you're not, something comes along to tumble you.
Yes, yeah. That's I think that's an important point. We're not special, so to speak.
No.
The offices we hold are very special. The information and the services that we provide are vital on a lot of levels. But as individuals, we're human beings, just like everybody else, and we should respect their time and efforts in everything that they're doing. Occasionally we have people, phone call or in person, and they're at their wits' end, and they are frustrated, and they're very aggravated, but they still have a point. There's something that they're getting at.
Yes.
You have to kind of sift through the aggravation, the frustrated tones, to find what it is that needs to be addressed and address it. And I always remind people, you can call us and you can speak to us before you're frustrated, right? When it's a very small problem or a minor annoyance, bring it to our attention. We'll get to it.
Please.
Yeah. So, Christian, I want to thank you again for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure.
It was great to get some information out into the world, and I hope our listeners were able to enjoy, and maybe some of you out there can actually use some of the services from Adult Protective Services. Just to reiterate again, for anyone interested in that, the phone number was 631-853-8200. And thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week on Long Island's most listened to radio station, Walk 97.5.